Welcome to Mishras Commander's Nights. Today we have a new exciting video with a friend that decided to join our crazy games. Please don't forget to comment our videos if you want to make part of our crazy group. Come on and subscribe to the channel following our weekly games. Let's go!
At his first game, all players kept their opening hands. Francisco, playing Ghired Conclave Exile, gets in his opening hand a mountain, plains and tiger for lands, and also Kadama's Reach, Greater Good, Proud Bonder and Shanakos the Revealer. Gonçalo, at Atraxa's Praetors Voice, gets by opening hand an Overground Tomb and Interplan Beacon, with Mana Vault and Mana Creep, the Toxic Deluge, Oko Thief of Realms, and Tamio Field Researcher. Janito is playing Sidisi Broad Tyrant, starting with Tainted Eyes, Rejuvenating Springs, Milikin, Pila Pala, Beast Within, Reap, and Dashiog Grim Reander. The new player Febrero, playing Nath the Gilt-Leaf, Keeping Swamp, Bajuka Bob, and Command Tower, with Withering Boom, Sidisi Hypnotic, Creeping Dread, and Bola Citadel as opening hand. After winning the dice roll 4 times in a row, Gonçalo starts the game playing tapped Overground Tomb and passing to Febrero. Febrero draws a card, plays Command Tower, and passes to Janito. Janito then draws a card, plays Rejuvenating Spring, and passes the turn to Francisco. Francisco draws, plays a Taga, and passes to Gonçalo. On the second turn, Gonçalo untaps, draws a card, and plays Interplanar Beacon, tapping 1 to cast Mana Vault and passing the turn to Febrero. Febrero draws a card, plays a Swamp, and taps 2 mana to cast Lightning Greaves. On his turn, Janito draws a card, plays Tainted Idol, and taps 2 lands to cast Milikin. Francisco draws a card, plays a Plains, and finishes the turn. Starting the third turn, Gonçalo untaps, draws, plays an Icewind, and taps 3 to cast Hoko. Then creates a food token from Hoko, which is now at 6 points. Febrero then starts his turn untapping and drawing a card. He plays Bajuka Bob and passes to Janito. Janito untaps, draws, taps Milikin for 1 mana and 1 land to cast Embalmer's Tools. Then he taps the other land to cast Birds of Paradise. Francisco starts by drawing, putting a forest to the battlefield, and casts Kadama's Reach to get a mountain tapped and a forest to the hand. Gonçalo then untaps and draws, starting the fourth turn, by exchanging the control of Birds of Paradise to the food token, leaving Oko at 1 point. Then he taps 4 more mana to cast Atraxa, but Febrero counters the spell with Withering Boom, paying 3 life. On his turn, Febrero untaps and draws and plays Growing Rights. But he has no luck. Janito untaps and draws, plays Bajuka Bob and passes to Francisco. Francisco untaps, draws, plays a mountain, taps 4 to cast Proud Bonder and passing the turn. Gonçalo starts the 5th turn untapping and drawing, plays a Misty Rainforest and uses 1 life to fetch for a Tundra. Then he casts Tamio, the Field Researcher, puts Tamio to 5 points, choosing Milikin and Proud Bonder as targets, and passes the turn. Febrero untaps, draws, plays 3 mana to cast Reclamation Sage targeting Mana Vault. He keeps the Greaves to the Reclamation Sage and attacks Oko. Gonçalo defends with Birds and passes the birds to Janito Grave. At his turn hand step, Janito casts Beast Within targeting Tamio and Gonçalo gets a 3/3 beast. On his turn, Janito untaps and draws. Taps 4 mana, milling 1 card from Milikin to cast his commander Sidisi, milling 3 more cards. Francisco starts his turn untapping and drawing. Drops a forest, attacks Oko, and Gonçalo draws a card. Gonçalo defends Hoko with the Beast, but Francisco chooses to deal the damage to Hoko. Francisco then taps 5 mana to cast his commander, Ghired. Passing the turn to Gonçalo, who untaps and draws for the beginning of his turn 6. Gonçalo passes to the attack phase, pointing the 3/3 beast to Febrero, and at his second main, he casts Toxic Deluge, losing 5 life to clean the table. In response, Janito taps a Milikin to mill 1 extra card. Gonçalo then passes to Febrero, who starts by untapping and drawing. Then Febrero casts Eladrami Ward of Leaves and equips Eladrami with the Greaves, to attack Janito with 2 damage points. On his turn, Janito untaps, draws, and taps 3 mana to cast a Shock Dream Render. Janito leaves a shock with 4 points, mills 4 cards, and exiles all graves from his opponents. Francisco then starts his turn untapping and drawing. Then he taps 2 mana to cast Harmonic Prodigy and taps 4 less to cast Xenagos the Revealer. He puts Xenagos at 4 points, giving 1 mana to the pool, and dropping Alpine Meadow as land for a turn. Gonçalo starts the third 7 playing Windswept Heat to get Tropical Horizon and losing 1 life, then he taps 2 mana to cast Spellskite, passing the turn to Febrero. Febrero starts his turn with untapping and drawing, and passing to the attack phase, assigning Eladrami to Janito as Shock. He's now at 2 points. Then Febrero taps 3 mana to cast Staff of Domination, and passes the turn to Janito, who starts with untapping and drawing. He puts a Shock to 1 point and builds another 4 cards. He then casts Demonic Tutor to get a land, avoiding the mana screw situation he's in, and getting an Overground Tomb untapped and losing 2 life. Then he taps 2 mana, casting the Evoked Ghost of Foundation Breaker and targets Staff of Domination. Francisco then starts his turn untapping and drawing, puts a mountain, taps 7 mana and casts Ghired again on the board. Giving him 2 tokens due to Harmonic Prodigy. Then he takes Xenagos to 5 points, having 4 mana plus 1 from his land, and casts Shamanic Revelation, drawing 4 cards and having some life. At his combat phase, he assigns Harmonic to Ashiok and finally kills it. We're now at turn 8 and Gonçalo starts by playing a Flooded Strand and fetching for a Savannah. Then he taps 4 mana, casting another board wipe with Wrath of God. On the end of his turn, Febrero casts Word with Tutor, getting Oakham Adversary. In return, he casts it for 2 mana due to his CTB, equip it with Greaves, and attacks Xenagos, leaving it at 4 points and passing to Janito. Janito untaps, draws, pays 4 mana to cast Auric War Mage and passes to Francisco. Francisco untaps, draws, plays a Forest, pays 3 mana to cast Bow of Nilia. On the 9th turn, Gonçalo untaps, draws, plays Underground Sea, and taps 6 mana to cast Atraxa, passing to Febrero. Febrero untaps, draws a card, and casts Elvish Archdruid. he equips Archdruid with Greaves, and taps to have mana to cast Elvish Mystic. Genito untaps, draws, plays Underground River, and taps Auric to search for Jin-Jin-Taxia to the grave. Then he plays Reanimate to get Jin-Jin-Taxia to the board, losing 10 life.
No.
At the end step, Genito draws 7 cards and Francisco puts a +1/+1 counter on the token. On Francisco's turn, he untaps, draws, and plays a forest. Then he pays 4 mana to cast Greater Good. He now takes Shenagos to 6 points, adding 1 mana, and with 1 tap land, he casts Disenchant targeting Greaves, and then taps 2 more lands to cast Wear to Genito's artifacts. At the end step, Francisco discards all his lands, all his hands, and passes the turn. We're now on turn 10. Gonçalo taps, draws, and passes to the attack phase, pointing Atraxa at Genito, winning 4 life. At his second main, he plays Mana Crypt. Then he pays 4 mana to cast Tamil, Collectors of Tales, and cast Supreme Verdict to remove Jin-Jin-Taxia from the board. In response, Genito casts Frantic Search, and then Francisco puts a Hexa counter on the token and sacrifices it too. Then the verdict resolves and Gonçalo forgets Tamio and passes the turn. Febrero untaps, draws, and passes to Genito. Genito untaps, draws, plays City of Brass, takes 1 damage from tapping it, and casts Sidisi, moving 3 more cards. It's now Francisco's turn. He untaps, draws, and taps 5 mana to cast Zila's Conscripts. Gaining control of Tamio until end of turn. He uses Tamio's ability to get Ephemerate to the hand. Then he pays 4 mana to cast Restoration Angel, targeting the Zilas. And when Zilas enters, he targets Sidisi. Then he ultimates Shenagos, exiling the top 7 cards and playing Silesia, Eluchist, Irona's God Victory, Red Dragon, and the Land. Then he passes to the attack phase, milling 3 cards from Sidisi and sending Sidisi to Gonçalo and the Zilas to Febrero. Both players lose 3 life and Francisco passes the turn. At the beginning of turn 11, Tamio returns to Gonçalo. Sidisi is sacrificed to Greater Good. Mana Creep gives no damage to Gonçalo. Then Gonçalo untaps and draws a card. He takes Tamio to 3 points and names James Mind Sculptor. Then he casts Atraxa for the third time and proliferates at the end of turn. Febrero untaps, draws, and pays 2 mana to cast Priest of Titania and passes to Janito. He untaps, draws, pays Misty Rainforest and pays 1 life to fetch for Hyzon. Then he pays 2 mana to cast Lightning Greaves. He pays 2 more to cast Reap, getting Animate Dead to the hand. After that, he casts Animate Dead to get Jin Syntaxis to the board. Then he keeps it with the Graves, but in response Francisco casts Ephemerate on Zealous Conscripts, and Zealous Conscripts targets Jin Syntaxia. Then Francisco sacrifices it to Greater Good, ending Janito's turn. On Francisco's turn, Ephemerate returns tagging the Zealous and getting Tamu again. Then he draws, uses Tamu, now at 1 point, and brings Karmic Guide to the hand. Then he casts Fairy Guardian targeting Zealous again, and Zealous targets Gonzalo Savannah. Then Francisco enters the combat phase, declaring attacks to Janito and Gonzalo. He sacrifices the Red Dragon to the Greater Good, and then casts Relentless Assault, giving him a second attack phase, killing Gonzalo and giving damage to Janito too. Gonzalo loses the game with Liliana Ultimate on hand, but 1 mana less to cast it. Febrero starts to turn 12, untaps, draws and casts Tower Cal, putting it with 3 points and creating an elf token passing to Janito. Janito untaps, draws, plays a forest, and taps 2 mana to cast Masked Vandal, exiling Birds of Paradise, and Iona's God of Victory. Then he encores Elfin Mutiner, targeting Restoration Angel. In response, Francisco activates Bow and gains 3 life. Then he sacrifices Zealous to the Greater Good and Restoration Angel to Greater Good too. Janito then equips Greaves to his creature and passes to Francisco. Francisco untaps, draws, pays 5 mana to cast Karmic Guide targeting Restoration Angel. That targets Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide blinks, targeting Zealous Conscripts. That targets Janito Greaves, and equips the Angel. Now, at the combat phase, Francisco attacks Janito and passes the turn. Febrero starts to turn 13, untapping and drawing, and dropping a forest. Then he creates an elf token from Tather, and he taps 6 mana to cast Bobo Citadel. Febrero looks at the top, loses 2 life and casts Thorn of Amethyst. Then he loses 3 life to cast Arcane Signet, 1 life to cast Deadrite Shaman. In response, Francisco sacrifices 1 creature to greater good. After that, Febrero keeps on going, paying 5 mana to cast Sadistic Hypnotic, sacrificing 1 token to force Francisco to discard 2 cards. Then at his turn, Janito untaps, draws, and casts Sidisi, and equips it with the Greaves, passing to Francisco. Francisco puts a counter to Restoration Angel and pays Karmikite Echo cost, drawing a card. Then he passes to attack phase, killing both players at the same time, finishing the game. Good game! What can we get? All players dominate the game in some points. Gonçalo avoiding the board grow, Febrero always waiting for the Citadel, Janito with Jin Taxi's threat, and Francisco with the unstoppable wings. We hope for your comments, for our improvements and mistakes. We have open seats for our incoming videos, and we welcome you with a friendly kitchen table game that we all hope you lose. Please, leave your comments below and contact us, and don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. We have a lot of ideas, games, unboxing and giveaways for our followers. And that's it for today. Good games!